Good afternoon and welcome to Worcester Public Library's monthly nutrition class. Today we welcome back registered dietitian Judy Palken for her class, Your Plant-Based Diet. Judy provides the information and guidance to help you make effective and healthful dietary changes. She's interested in healthful dietary patterns such as the Mediterranean diet, high fiber eating, and the many health benefits of plant phytochemicals. She also greatly enjoys recipe development and writing about nutrition. Thank you, Judy.
Oh, thank you, Dot. And welcome everyone. I'm really glad to see you all. Just a couple quick things. At the end of the last session, there were a couple questions answered that I just want to really fast address. So somebody had asked, actually Devin had asked, and she's not here. We were talking about anthocyanins, those great phytochemicals in dark produce, and she asked about dates. So I looked it up, and dates are a great source of those anthocyanins. We just have to watch it with dates because they're really concentrated in sugar. So 2 is considered to be a serving. And somebody asked about sprouts, and sprouts are extremely nutritious. They tend to be higher in vitamins and minerals than the full-grown plant when they're just a little sprout. But you just have to be careful with them. We never should eat them if they smell bad or if they're slimy. They've been the source of food-borne illness. So they need to be fresh and, well refrigerated, but they're a good food. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see that? Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Okay, so let me just see if I can shift there. Okay. So, that's not right. Okay. Welcome to Your Plant-Based Diet. A lot of us are trying to eat more plant-based foods or just more plant foods. And so it did seem like a good idea to delve into this topic. So in this class, I want to take a look at the reasons people are trying to eat more plant-based, the health benefits of doing so, and spend most of the time on how to do it, the path towards more plants. And in particular, I want to focus on really good sources of plant protein and some meal ideas. I want to encourage you to be your best plant-based eater. If you have something you want to share about this topic, like how you do it or why you want to eat more plant-based or why it might be difficult for you, feel free to put it in the chat box, or if you'd rather just tell us, you can just put your hand up or indicate that in some way that you would like to speak, and we'd be very glad to hear from you. Okay, so this is a really abridged plant-based eating through history. Let's see if I can move these there. So this is by no means comprehensive, but some of the highlights throughout history of plant-based eating, because it may seem right now like it's the latest trend, but plant-based eating has been around for thousands of years. And in fact, most traditional indigenous diets through the centuries have been based on plant foods. There's just so many more of them easily available than animal foods. Some of the famous people throughout history who have advocated for plant-based eating include the Buddha, who promoted a vegetarian diet to his followers, the Greek philosopher Plato, who told the townspeople to avoid meat for health reasons. And during the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment, there were several artists and philosophers who avoided animal products for ethical reasons, including Leonardo da Vinci and Voltaire. And then more recently, Albert Einstein was a vegetarian. He actually was only a vegetarian in the last couple of years of his life. He wanted to be for longer, but he had a medical condition and his doctor advised him that he had to eat meat. But anyway, Einstein said, nothing will increase the chance of survival for life on Earth as much as the evolution of the vegetarian diet. So he was, of course, ahead of his time. In the 1970s, the plant-based movement in the US took off. There were communes in California with vegetarians, hippies living on them, eating a lot of tofu, which is a good food, by the way. I'll get to that in a little bit. And today, vegetarianism is a lifestyle that's practiced worldwide. It's a vibrant community. It's no longer considered to be in any way radical or unusual to be a vegetarian. Now, what I'm going to be talking about, plant-based eating, I don't just mean vegetarian, although vegetarian is a very healthy way of eating if it's done right. But eating in a plant-based manner does not necessarily have to mean giving up meat. It just might mean cutting back on it a bit. I want to know if these bring back memories for any of you. These are classics. And if you were around in the 1970s and early 80s, and you were trying to eat vegetarian or more plant-based, you might have come across these. Maybe some of you even owned one or two of them. Maybe one of them is floating around your house now. So these were just classics: Diet for a Small Planet and Laurel's Kitchen. And these are my copies. Diet for a Small Planet, Frances Moore Lappe advocated for the health benefits, the nutritional benefits, and the environmental benefits of eating a plant-based diet. And well, both of these books have a lot of information about how to cook dried beans and how to cook grains and a lot of recipes. What I love about Laurel's Kitchen is it's by three women, Laurel Robertson, Carol Flinders, and Bronwyn Godfrey, and they were young women living in Berkeley, California in the 1970s, becoming vegetarian. So you can imagine what that was like. And one of them, in the whole first chapter of the book, writes about how difficult it was going to the food co-op at Berkeley and seeing all these beautiful bins of beans and grains and not knowing what to do with them. She didn't have a clue. And I know that maybe sometimes we might feel that way. So I advise you, if you can get a hold of these, to take a look. I guess the library has more recent copies, or they're working on getting older copies or something, but they're classics. Okay, so why eat plant-based? Why do people choose to do it? I've identified 4 big reasons, although there certainly might be more, but I bet if you think about it, you could come up with the 4 reasons, or at least most of them. So I want to start with religion. Some religions tell their followers to eat a vegetarian or at least a highly plant-based diet, including Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Jainism is the most strict. That religion wants all their followers to be vegetarian. Among Hindus and Buddhists, not everybody is vegetarian, but a lot are. But even if we're not a member of one of these religions, the main religions of the world all have aspects of them where they talk about being good stewards of the earth and compassion for animals, which, you know, a lot of people get that from their faith, and they therefore choose to eat fewer animal products. Next reason is personal health. It is really healthy to eat in a plant-based manner. And if you're struggling with anything like high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, you're trying to lose weight, it can really benefit you to shift the diet towards more plants. It can even help to prevent some of those conditions. Next is animal welfare, compassion for animals. We live in a country that unfortunately practices what's called industrial livestock production, or intensive livestock production, or it's also called factory farming. And this is designed to maximize production of meat with almost no thought given to the comfort of and the compassion for the animals. So very often they're taken from their mothers at birth, and they're confined throughout their lives to small pens where they can't even move or turn around. So they lead a miserable existence. And then finally, the most recent reason that people are choosing to eat plant-based is environmental concerns. Our earth is hurting in a lot of ways, and our food choices can have an impact on that. We now know, we've known for a long time, that plant foods require a lot less land and water and other resources to produce than animal-based foods. Livestock production in particular is a factor in the contamination of water. It takes a lot of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers to grow all that hay and corn and everything to feed the cattle and the other animals. And there's also a lot of antibiotics used, and all of this stuff ends up running off into water supplies, making it unfit to use, unfit to drink. Our soil is being destroyed with our monoculture agricultural system, where a lot of, for example, corn is grown over and over. That's not good for the soil. And in fact, the world over, a lot of soil is drying up and turning to desert. There's even a word for it. It's called desertification, and it's happening all over, and it's alarming. And then finally, livestock production is a factor in our warming climate, because livestock produces a lot of methane, and methane is a potent greenhouse gas. So those are the reasons. However, people are complex, and you might identify a few of these reasons, 2 or 3 or even 4 of them, that are prompting you to want to choose more plant products and less animal products. So the health benefits to human health of plant-based eating are significant, and we started knowing about them in the late 1950s with what's called the Adventist Health Studies out of Loma Linda University School of Public Health in California. And they looked at Seventh-day Adventists. They are told by their faith that the body is a holy temple, and we should only take in the healthiest foods. So therefore, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are vegetarian, and they studied them and found that yes, indeed, they had better health, better markers of health than non-vegetarians. And since then, hundreds of studies at least have shown that plant-based eating is associated with a lower risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and certain cancers. And why would that be? So plant foods are high in great nutrients. They're brimming with fiber, vitamins, minerals, great phytochemicals, and they're low in saturated fat. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes people that eat a plant-based diet put a real emphasis on whole foods. We all should, but not everyone does. So whole foods are healthier. When foods are refined, like for example, wheat being made into white flour, valuable nutrients are lost. And here's another reason why a plant-based diet is really good for our health. It's inflammation. So our diets can be inflammatory or they can be anti-inflammatory. An inflammatory diet is one that is excessive in sugar, refined starches, saturated fat, and has too little fiber. And in particular, studies have shown that sugar-sweetened beverages and too much red meat are inflammatory. And this triggers the release of what's called pro-inflammatory cytokines. These are proteins, and they increase the risk of all these diseases, inflammatory conditions. An anti-inflammatory diet is a whole foods, plant-based diet rich in antioxidants and fiber. It's good for the heart, the brain, the joints, the whole body. And some foods have been shown in particular to reduce markers of inflammation, like cherries, all kinds of berries, broccoli, and other cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts and arugula and Swiss chard. Spices, all kinds of spices seem to be anti-inflammatory, especially turmeric and cloves and oregano are some examples, and walnuts and flaxseed. So it's really good to choose those. And here's a just spectacular Saison. Look at those vivid colors. So those bright red cherries, those are anti-inflammatory. Probably the peaches too. Bright foods like that in the plant world are really, really healthful. Okay, so now how do we do it? The path towards more plants in a way that makes us happy. We want to really enjoy what we eat and be content with our choices. Otherwise, we won't want to stick with it. So first I want to bring up the concept of the Flexitarian diet. If you happen to be at my class on healthy planet eating, I talked about it then, but it always bears repeating. A Flexitarian diet is a really healthful way of eating, or it can be. And it's the way I try to eat. There's no strict definition of it, and it's a relatively new term, but what it means is that you're semi-vegetarian, you try to eat in a plant-forward way. So someone who's flexitarian is consciously cutting back on meat. You likely have concerns about the environmental impact of your food choices, as well as animal welfare. You might notice that you've been eating a lot of veggie burgers, maybe tofu, maybe you're drinking plant-based beverages, maybe you're cooking with beans and lentils a lot, but yet you have some meat items that you don't want to give up. Maybe you want that occasional burger or chicken, or maybe even more than occasionally. Maybe you want them a few times a week, but you're eating many, many, many more plant-based meals. So if that's all, if any of that is you, you are likely flexitarian or heading in that direction. From a health standpoint, it can be very similar to the Mediterranean way of eating, which we know is really good for us. So first bit of advice, man cannot survive on ramen and bagels. And here's what I mean by that. We've probably all known the person or observed someone, or even been the person that decides to give up meat or cut way back on meat. Often it's a college student or a high school student, and they just give up the meat. But you can't live on just the sides. I mean, you can't. So in other words, like these college students that are eating a lot of ramen, you have to sub something instead of the meat. Meat has a lot of protein. It's got a lot of iron, zinc, other really good minerals, and these are really important. It's nutritious. So we need to get those nutrients elsewhere, which means we need to find plant proteins that we enjoy. Find out what you like that you can use in a creative way. And that might mean just experimenting and trying a whole bunch of them. And there's a lot of them out there. And you will likely find that some of them you really like and some of them you don't like so much. That's kind of what I have found, although I think it's worth trying some of them over and over. So let me talk about some of them. First, I want to talk about the soybean. Soybeans are very nutritious. They're a legume. They have a lot of healthful properties, and they have very high quality protein, like the protein in eggs or milk or meat. We can utilize it very readily. They've got more protein, twice as much as other legumes. So they're exceptional from a protein standpoint. They've got really good fats, including an omega-3 fatty acid, alpha linolenic acid, ALA. And they've got great fiber that can help to regulate blood sugar, help with our gastrointestinal function, and help with satiety. So a diet with a good amount of soy foods has been shown to reduce risk of cardiovascular disease and certain cancers. And this is just a picture of soybeans growing on their plant. There are many ways to enjoy soy. These are some of the common ones in the US, but there are lots of other soy foods. So first of all, there's tofu, which is soybean curd, a very nutritious food. Less commonly known in the US is tempeh, which is a fermented soy food that is formed into compact, like rectangular cakes, and it originated in Indonesia. There's edamame, which is the immature green soybeans in the pod, very nice steamed. You can buy them in the pod or already shelled. And if you've been out for Japanese food, you've probably seen edamame as an appetizer. It's very delicious. There are soy nuts, which are actually not nuts. They're roasted soybeans, and it makes a nice nutritious snack. I've gotten them on nuts.com, which is a nice site for nuts and dried fruits. There are all kinds of meat substitutes that contain soy. So there's soy burgers, there's soy crumbles, there's soy sausage and soy bacon, and there's TVP, which I'll show you the package in a minute, but that's textured vegetable protein, which is made out of soy flour. So all kinds of meat subs that you can use in recipes or on their own to take the place of meat. And then finally, there's soy milk, which has been very popular for a long time now. It's a great sub for regular cow's milk. So let's talk a bit about tofu. Tofu might be the most popular soy food, and it really is an easy, inexpensive, nutritious way to get protein when you're eating more plant-based. They coagulate soy milk and they press the resulting curds into soft white blocks, and it's sold in packages like this. This is 365 brand, so that means it's Whole Foods. This is organic, firm tofu. You can buy tofu that is firm, extra firm, soft, various ways. It's extremely nutritious. It's high in protein, low in calories. It's very low sodium, saturated fat and cholesterol free. It's a great source of calcium when it's made with calcium sulfate, which it almost always seems to be. It's got a really good omega-3 fatty acid. It's got isoflavones, which are plant estrogens and seem to be disease fighting. And all in all, it's just a great vegetarian food. Whether you're vegetarian or not, it's a great food choice. So cooking with tofu, if you haven't tried it, well, first of all, you can use it raw. You don't have to cook it. You can just cut up cubes of tofu and put it like in a salad. But tofu is porous and it picks up the flavor of the foods it's cooked with. Sometimes you'll hear people say it doesn't have any flavor on its own. I actually find it does have a very mild flavor, but it definitely picks up the flavor of whatever you're cooking it with. So it's nice. It's extremely versatile. So firm and extra firm tofu hold their shape. And if you cut it into strips or cubes and stir fry it, it's very nice. You can marinate it in any kind of a sauce and saute it or bake it or grill it. You can use it in casseroles. You can scramble it up as an egg substitute, put some turmeric in it, and it takes on the yellow color so it looks more like scrambled eggs. And finally, if you are using ground meat in a recipe, you could cut back on the ground meat and extend it with some tofu. There's a nice cookbook called Tofu Cookery by Louise Hagler that you can get if you want, that has a lot of tofu recipes. Now, legumes in general. So the soybean is a legume, but all legumes are great for your plant-based diet. They are a food staple throughout the world. They've been relied upon by humanity for thousands of years. So if you're using legumes, you're just continuing a great tradition. They are, I believe, essential for plant-based eating. I don't think you can do it right without legumes. They're healthful. They've got protein, fiber, B vitamins, iron and other minerals, and great phytochemicals. They're economical. You can actually cut your food costs by buying legumes. They are inexpensive compared to any other source of protein. And they're good for our planet. They've got one of the lowest carbon footprints of any kind of food, and they require a lot less water to grow than animal foods and even grains. They're quite drought tolerant. So if you're choosing legumes, you're helping your own health. You're helping your wallet and you're helping the planet. And you might find that if you're really eating a lot of plant foods, that you're having legumes every day, maybe even more than once a day. And I just want you to know that that's fine. That's really good, actually. And also remember, if you're having legumes a lot, to drink a lot of water. If you're increasing your intake of them, you need a lot of water to process them, or you could be very uncomfortable.
Judy, can we pause for a quick question?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. One question is, some say tofu is still processed. How do you feel about that? And soy nuts are high in fat, aren't they? Or is it the good fat?
So yeah, soy nuts are often roasted, and there might be, they might have some oil added in the roasting, and soybeans themselves do contain some oil. Honestly, I'm not sure of the fat content, but I will say that if a food is healthy, even if it has some good fats, that's fine. It's like nuts. Nuts are high in fat, but they're very, very good for us. So I'm not too concerned about the fat in soy nuts. But of course, you should measure it out. About a quarter cup or an ounce would be a serving. We don't want to overdo it on foods like that. Because then, if you sat down and ate a whole cup of them, then the fat would be too much. And yes, tofu is processed. Not all processing is bad. Even canned beans are processed, enough to get them into the can. They're cooked and boiled and everything. So some processing is okay. And I'm not concerned about the processing of tofu just to get it into that compact cake that we buy. Yeah. But it's a good question. So if you choose dried beans, you are choosing, actually, speaking of processing, you're choosing like the least processed form, unless you just eat fresh beans, like fresh lima beans. So dried beans have the advantage of not having the salt that is added to canned beans, although we can buy fairly low sodium canned beans now, so that's a good thing. And you can always rinse them really well, and you should. But dried beans have that advantage, and they're also the most economical way of buying beans. So if you buy dried beans, you can either soak them for several hours or overnight. Just be sure to use a lot of water because they absorb water as they soak. Or you can cook them on the stove top by covering them and simmering them for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how tender you like them. Lentils and split peas are great. They don't need any prolonged soaking. They cook really quickly because they're so small. So if you don't decide on dinner till like an hour before dinner, you can still have legumes with dried lentils and split peas. They cook that fast. And it's nice to experiment with the seasonings and the veggies with any kind of beans or lentils. Some that are nice are shown here: the lemon juice, vinegar, dill, peppers, tomatoes, onions. But there's really no right or wrong. Whatever you like with beans and lentils, whatever makes you happy is what to put with it. Here's a nice bean painting. This is by Peter de Hoogh, who was a Dutch Golden Age painter. He was a contemporary of Vermeer, and like him, he painted a lot of beautiful interiors and exteriors of homes in the Netherlands. And this is a woman with a basket of, we don't know what kind of beans, but she was probably a servant bringing the beans into this beautiful home. So now I want to talk about some of those other meat alternatives. And honestly, I have not tried all these. I've tried 2 of them, so I mean to try the other 2 soon. If you've tried any of these and you have strong opinions about them, let us know. So starting with seitan. Seitan is actually wheat gluten, and the picture on the bottom left is seitan. It's also called wheat meat. And it's like tofu, they say it picks up the flavor of whatever is around it, whatever you cook it with. This one I have tried a couple times over the years. I have not had success with it, So I'm thinking I need someone else to prepare it for me, like a good vegetarian restaurant, to see how it's supposed to be done. However, if you've had a different experience, please let us know. Corn. Corn is a mycoprotein, so it's a protein grown from a fungus. And it's a very sustainable protein source, and they take that mycoprotein and they process it into all kinds of meat substitutes. Jackfruit, which is a tropical fruit native to South India. It's incidentally, it grows to be the largest fruit in the world. I guess they can weigh up to 80 pounds, which is phenomenal for one piece of fruit. And it's often used as a meat substitute due to its texture, which is comparable to shredded meat. I tried that one at a restaurant. It was great. And pumfu. I only recently found out about this. It's a pumpkin seed tofu alternative. It looks like, oh, by the way, it's shown there on the right. It looks like green tofu. I'm very anxious to try it. It's just pumpkin seed. It's very high in protein. It's got good fats. It's high in fiber. I mean, this could be an ideal food. If you've tried pumfu, you need to let us know. That fruit, the second from the right, that's jackfruit. And the corn, one of the corn products is shown second from the left. And there are other meat alternatives out there, but these are some of the really interesting ones. And you might be wondering about the plant milks or the plant-based beverages. The dairy, the real dairy industry, by the way, hates the term plant milk. They have even sued and tried to get these people not to use it. They say milk is milk, and they're probably right. But anyway, so here's some plant-based beverages. There's an astounding array of plant-based beverages that I've listed the ones that I'm aware of on the left. It started many years ago with soy milk. At least that was the first one I became aware of. And then there's almond milk, or beverage, I should say, and then came cashew. And these are not really in order, but the pistachio one I only just saw the other day. I was not aware of that. So basically, these are mostly water with some solids of whatever the plant is mixed in. You should read the labels. I do advise you to buy them. They're delicious in coffee or tea. Some people like them on their cereal. They're good in smoothies. They're fun to try, but read the labels. I always look for no added sugar, because why do we want extra sugar? It doesn't need it. I like to look for added calcium and vitamin D. It's pretty easy, especially with soy milk and almond milk, to find added calcium and vitamin D, because we get that from regular milk. So if we're going to move towards plant-based beverages, it's nice to get that calcium and vitamin D. And just on a practical note, shake them well before you use them, because the solids can settle to the bottom. But if you really love one of these, let us know.
Judy, just a quick comment. Elaine,
Sure.
she said corn is fabulous. She's tried that. And she's saying milk for plant-based beverages in California is illegal in California. So now all these say beverage, not milk.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
illegal in California. I did not know that. Okay,
Yeah.
so the dairy industry had success with that. That's very interesting. And yes, I know you had mentioned that once to me, Elaine, about corn, and I'm very anxious to try that. That's the other one I haven't tried. So on the shopping list. Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
And Philomena has a quick comment. She said she took a vegan cooking class and was shocked how delicious everything was. She says really delicious. Seitan, I specifically remember we used a few times. We used soy-based sausages, ground meat, etc.
Oh, wow. Philomena, if you are inclined, if you want to put where that class was, if it's still around, that sounds really fabulous. I would love to take that. Okay, Here's a Renoir of cauliflower and pomegranates from 1890, just to remind me to tell you, because I'm not focusing on fruits and vegetables in this class, but of course, as part of your plant-based diet, to eat lots of great and wonderful fruits and vegetables. So you might need to reapportion your plate. Most Americans don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. So just a reminder that at any given meal, ideally, it should be about half of what we eat. Lots and lots of fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables. That's where people really, really fall short. So do whatever you have to. Have them at breakfast, you know, put them in your smoothie, put them in soup, just enjoy fruits and vegetables. I love this recipe, so I wanted to share it with you. This is from a cookbook called the Moosewood Cookbook, which, by the way, is another classic from the 1970s. It's named after the Moosewood restaurant, a vegetarian restaurant in Ithaca, New York. And this recipe out of that cookbook is so good and so simple. I shortened it for the sake of fitting it on the slide, but basically all you're doing is steaming some vegetables and beans, and not all of them even need to be steamed. And you're putting them in a marinade made out of olive oil, vinegar, spices, herbs really, and letting it marinate in your refrigerator. And then it's good on its own. It's good on top of a salad. So I love to do this with broccoli and red onions and chickpeas. Just delicious. Here's some nice veggie dinners. There's lots of classic dishes that, you know, we can all have if we want to have more vegetarian dinners. Chili made with lots of beans, eggplant parmesan, a quiche with lots of veggies in it, whatever kind of veggies you like. Maybe something like a top your own pizza night. This is good if you're trying to get family members on board. Let them pick whatever they want in addition to the cheese, you know, whatever veggies and olives and, you know, maybe cubes of tofu or whatever to put on the pizza. And maybe a nice hearty vegetable soup. And this is not a recipe for soup here. This is just a lot of ingredients that add good flavor and heartiness to a soup to try to get your family on board if that's an issue with eating lots of veggie dinners. And here is a beautiful soup tureen and basket of fruit from Cezanne. Again, look at those colors. Okay, so I would encourage you to try new vegetarian recipes often if you need to. If you don't have a whole array of them that you like, try them maybe about one a week or so, if you are inclined to do that, until you have several that you really like. So ways to go about this, you might take your favorite recipes and modify them and just use beans, lentils, tofu, grains, other plant proteins instead of the meat in a recipe. You could do that. Or you could ask your friends for vegetarian recipes. Even if they're not vegetarian, they might have some that they really like and would be happy to share with you. Cookbooks are great to browse through. Even again, if they're not fully vegetarian cookbooks, you might find some great inspiration in them. So look through your own cookbooks if you have some. And libraries are excellent resources for cookbooks. Just shelves and shelves of cookbooks that you can check out and copy recipes or just browse through at the library, because it can be expensive to go out and buy several cookbooks and they take up room in the kitchen. So you might want to at least have a look at some before you make any commitments. And there's many websites that have lots of really good vegetarian recipes. Here's two that I really like. Mediterraneanliving.com, which I know I've talked about before. If you go to their recipe section and then click on vegetarian, you'll find lots of great ideas using beans and so on. And if you type in your search box, all recipes vegetarian, lots and lots of really delicious vegetarian recipes will come up. You can make some plant-forward swaps with your favorite recipes, like I just mentioned. So for example, Instead of spaghetti and meatballs, if that's a big thing for you, you could use any one of a variety of plant-based meats in your spaghetti and meatballs. So for example, what's shown here is Bob's Red Mill TVP, which again is textured vegetable protein. That is technically defatted soy flour, and it has a meat-like consistency. So if you throw that in a soup, a chili, a pasta sauce, it's kind of like ground beef, and you don't, no special prep required. Just throw it in what you're cooking and it reconstitutes, and it's really good. You could also take that same pasta sauce and put in some cubes of tofu. You could actually, and I've done this, you could cut up some soy sausage or some soy or any other kind of plant-based burgers and just throw those pieces into the pasta sauce. Instead of grilled chicken, you could have grilled portobello mushroom or grilled eggplant with maybe a little something for the protein on the side. I always like to fall back on plain yogurt, but you know, something to get that protein in the meal. If you were making a lasagna, let's say you wanted to leave out some of the cheese, you could use some soft tofu. For example, for someone who's struggling with a high cholesterol, leave out some of the cheese, just use the tofu. Tuna salad, you could make a chickpea salad, and there's tons of recipes online. If you Google mock tuna salad or no tuna salad, you'll see some nice chickpea salad recipes. Bacon. People love bacon the world over. It's not even just an American thing. People have a love affair with bacon, and I get it. It's that salt, it's that saturated fat that has that really good mouthfeel. It's that umami flavor, that savory flavor. So I've listed here 3 foods that also have a high umami content, umami being that savory flavor. Mushrooms, which you could saute and have on the side with your eggs, or tomatoes, or seaweed. Seaweed also has that kind of flavor. And I think I've read we're going to be seeing a lot more seaweed, a lot more kelp. Maine lobstermen, lobster women, some of them are having trouble finding enough lobsters as the water's warming up and the lobsters are moving north. And some of them are turning to kelp farming. So let's all keep an open mind and try it. And finally, you know, in a situation where burgers would be served, there's lots of plant-based burgers. I just tried one recently. It was Hillary's black bean burger, and it was loaded with black beans and vegetables and really, really good. So I recommend that.
And just a quick comment, Judy, from another participant, Eric, he says nutritional yeast will add cheese flavor. And Philomena says she has had vegan bacon, tastes like bacon to me, purists might differ. And she agrees nutritional yeast does taste like cheese.
Yes, yeah, thank you for that, Eric. And both of you, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, nutritional yeast, you can throw it on foods and it does have a cheesy taste. Yeah. And just had to show this, Gauguin, these tomatoes are gorgeous and would enhance any, let me go back to those dishes. Any of these dishes would be enhanced by tomatoes, and they do have that great flavor. Okay, just want to put in a plug for stir-fried vegetables and tofu. I love it. It's easy, quick dinner, even quick lunch. You cut up your firm tofu or extra firm tofu if you like. Cut it into cubes or strips. There's no right or wrong shape. And just definitely use oil. It helps you to absorb the vitamins in the vegetables. And cut up your vegetables into uniform size pieces, ideally. I've listed some here, but really any veggies you like, and flavor it. Good flavorings are garlic, ginger, a little soy sauce or stir fry sauce if you like. Cashews or peanuts are very good in a stir fry, or almonds. And do include lots of nuts, and for that matter, seeds in your plant-based diet. They're very important for lots of nutrients. And I like to throw in things like a can of bamboo shoots that I get in the Asian section of almost any grocery store, or water chestnuts, really good in a stir fry. I don't do it every time, but if I have a can around, I'll throw it in. And it's nice to serve your stir fry on a whole grain, like for example, brown rice or quinoa or whatever whole grain you like. Complete dinner, all in one pan. Whatever wok-like pan you have will work.
And we have a question, Judy. What kind of sauce do you create for the stir fry? Mine are always just boring. This is one of the.
Yes, well, I'm gonna full disclosure here. Sometimes mine are boring too. Sometimes I don't put a sauce on. Sometimes I just go with ginger and garlic. I buy fresh ginger and I wash it and chop it up and freeze it in a container because otherwise it doesn't last. You know, a piece of ginger you buy is sizable and I can't use it all and it goes bad. So I use garlic and ginger. If I do make a sauce, in that same Moosewood cookbook that I was telling you about that had the marinated vegetables, there's a recipe called tamari ginger sauce. Tamari is like a soy sauce, and it's not made with wheat. It doesn't have a wheat base. And that tamari ginger sauce is so good. So yeah, I highly recommend that one. Unfortunately, I don't have it here on a slide, but you could probably Google Moosewood cookbook tamari ginger sauce, or you could find the cookbook in the library. And that sauce, if you make it, so it's got soy sauce, it's got water, it's got scallions, ginger, vinegar, a little pinch of sugar, which you could leave out if you want. Trying to remember what else. Anyway, it's so good, and it does keep in a jar in the fridge. So if you make a big batch of it, you can just use it every time you stir fry.
Yeah, one more question. What to do with tempeh? Any ideas? And Eric says he uses, for stir fry, he uses soy sauce, ginger, and sriracha.
Oh, thank you for that, Eric. And I believe it was Philomena that went to the vegan cooking class. If you have an idea for tempeh, if you learn something that you want to tell us, type it in. But I have only tried it a couple times, and what I've done is I have sauteed it in a pan and just eaten it with some vegetables. So I unfortunately don't have anything creative to tell you. If anybody else does, please let us know. Put your hand up or type it in. But it was good. It's not that I didn't like it, it's just that I need to do some more with it. Okay, here's another thing you could do. Build your own burritos or tacos, just as you would maybe saute up some ground beef or whatever people use. Just saute black beans, onion, garlic, roll it up into tortillas, or put it in taco shells. If it's tortillas, maybe heat it in the oven for a few minutes. And I've listed various toppings. Obviously, whatever toppings you like would be good with your burritos or tacos. And when it comes to tortillas, there are some really good whole grain options out there now. There's whole wheat tortillas, there's high fiber tortillas that are really good. Then there's the protein bowls. Just make this so I can see my whole slide. Protein bowls are kind of ubiquitous right now. If you go out to trendy restaurants, and it seems like for the past few years, what they refer to, and sometimes they're called power bowls or Buddha bowls or nourish bowls. They go by different names. Usually it's served in a deep dish like this, and it's got vegetables, sometimes fruit, a protein source, a whole grain, nuts or seeds, and something for flavor, like a sriracha sauce or any of these things listed here. And they're good. They make a whole meal. And for a while I had been asking myself, so how is this different from a salad? Because for a while I've been making salads, and I'll throw in either tuna or chickpeas or kidney beans. So what I've come to realize is there is a great emphasis on the protein. So here in this one, I think that's cubes of tempeh on the left. And on the right, there's edamame, the soybeans. So there's plenty of protein, and the ingredients aren't all mixed the way they are in the salad. So part of the difference is just the presentation. But they are, if you look online, there are such gorgeous protein bowls, unbelievable.
So I
Here's
have
some,
a question.
sure, yeah.
I know it's a little off the subject, but you might have an answer to that. Do you know anything about whey protein isolate? I know that's not vegetarian.
You know, it's not, well, it's vegetarian, it's not vegan. Yeah, I kind of, so whey protein can encourage muscle synthesis. So athletes will sometimes use it after a workout, like make a smoothie or some kind of a beverage out of it. I guess I would say I wouldn't go overboard on it. I seem to remember hearing in a podcast not too long ago, one that I trust, that the cholesterol in it can be oxidized, which isn't a good thing. I'm sure in moderation, like having 1 or 2 smoothies a week made out of it is probably fine. And if you are doing a workout and you want that whey protein isolate, go for it. But I think there's healthier sources of protein that we can add to a smoothie. There's pea protein and hemp protein and soy protein. So if you're doing it often, I'd rather see you go with that.
Well, I'm bringing it up because I came across this product called recovery water, which had clean protein, and the protein was whey protein. So it was recovery for exercising, but you're saying probably you shouldn't do it very often.
I guess I just have a preference for the plant proteins in that situation as a recovery beverage. And again, hemp, soy, pea protein. I mean, I think for a lot of us, no matter how much we work out, we don't even need to buy an isolated protein. There's enough high protein foods. You know, for example, you could be making a smoothie and put some yogurt in it, and throw some almonds in it. So yeah, that's what I know.
Do you know, are there any hemp protein drinks around? I have a pea protein drink, which I drink a lot. It's called Owen. Have you heard of any hemp protein drinks?
I haven't seen a hemp protein beverage per se, but what I have seen is just hemp protein, like at Wegmans, in that section where they sell the different proteins. I've seen just the big jars of hemp protein. And again, the less processed, the better. I would say just buy hemp seed. You know, in general, the less processed, the better. There's always exceptions, but you can buy hemp seed and put that in your smoothie rather than just buying the isolated protein, if you follow.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so sandwich ideas, if you're a person or you have a family member who has commonly had a daily, ham sandwich or roast beef or something, here's some nice vegetarian ideas. Any kind of nut butter with raisins or sliced banana is delicious. Hummus or a black bean spread and maybe some arugula. Any combination of veggies, cheese, and avocado is nice. Baked eggplant and tempeh bacon, which I tried recently and is the one I tried anyway, is delicious. Just really good. And now just a little bit of advice. If you're cooking for not just yourself, but your family, and your family is not on the same page, and this definitely happens, realize that moving towards more plant-based is a process. It can take time, especially when others are involved. So you might want to very patiently explain the benefits and why this is important to you. You might want to ask if they'd be willing to eat a certain number of plant-based meals per week. It might be comforting to them to know that you're not talking about having them never eat meat again, but maybe you can settle on, initially anyway, 2 meals a week or 3 dinners a week or something, and they might be more comfortable knowing that it's limited. And would they like to choose some recipes? Like if you pulled up some nice ones online or from a cookbook, maybe, you know, people like to have a say maybe in what's going to be cooked. And that can be fun anyway to look at together. Okay, so I don't know what just happened, but let me, okay, here we go. If you are the plant-based eater, like if you're going to an event or a dinner or something and you are aware that you might be the only one there who's eating this way. So first of all, before you go, remind yourself of your convictions so you can hold firm. Bring a dish, if it's something where you're bringing something, bring a dish that you can enjoy, a plant-based dish, so at least you have something, and have your responses ready. So it might be like, if there's going to be discussion of this, it might be, well, I like to eat this way because, and I feel good eating this way. I don't feel weak. I feel like I'm getting everything I need, for example. And if somebody's receptive to it, you could say you could try this idea and give them an idea about tempeh or tofu or whatever. And here are a few local restaurants that have good plant-based options. I mean, first of all, anytime you go out for ethnic food, whether it's Chinese or Vietnamese or Thai, any of those, there's going to be plenty of plant-based options in general. I'd be surprised if there weren't. But in particular, the new kitchen on Chandler Street in Worcester has some great options. There's 2 locations for the Loving Hut in Worcester, and they are vegetarian. Thai cuisine in general will have good plant-based options, but this menu looked really good on Shrewsbury Street for basil and spice Thai cuisine. And the 110 Grill, locations all around the area have some great plant-based options. And you might know of some others that you could tell us. So to wrap up, I'd like you to consider your reasons for moving towards more plant foods. If you're ready to do that, consider your reasons. And if you want to share that with us, go ahead. And also, what will you try? Be thinking about like any particular foods that we've discussed or any recipes. What would you like to give a try? I mean, I know personally, I'm going to get some of that pumfu and the corn, right? So while you're thinking about that, just one last painting. This is Gauguin from 1893. And just beautiful, just showing the beauty of our earth, the mountains and the trees and the sky. So I really encourage you, for your health and for all creatures and for the health of our planet, to continue to move in the direction of plant-based eating. So thank you, and I'm going to stop sharing and see if we have any discussion or questions.
Thank you, Judy. This is a great presentation. We learned a lot.
Thank you, Dot.
And I think does anyone else have questions? Want to unmute themselves?
I just wanted to mention that more and more restaurants, chains, indies, whatever, I rarely now find an issue for not being able to find something to eat. I almost always check the menu before I go to a particular restaurant, but more and more places have vegetarian options. Some are better than others, but there's almost always something that you can get. Most of the time, not always, but most of the time.
Yeah, thank you, Elaine. It's a really good idea about checking the menu ahead of time, because when you get caught up in the moment, when you're out to eat with friends or family, it can be really hard. And you could just say, oh, everyone's getting that, I'm going to get that, you know, the burger or whatever. And there's really no excuse these days, really, for restaurants not to have a few plant-based options, or at least to be accommodating to see what they can do for you. Yeah, I agree.
Allison did have a question. She wants to know the name of the mostly vegetarian diet.
Oh, Flexitarian.
Flexitarian. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, and I am going to send out the PDF of these slides, so hopefully you'll all get that afterwards. But Flexitarian or Plantforward, yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, the diet, the terms like vegetarian and flexitarian can refer to the diet, but also to the person. So you can say I'm a flexitarian, or you can say I eat a
They don't farm
flexitarian
any
diet.
hemp up where you are, do they?
Yep.
I know you have to be careful. A lot of it's farmed, and you don't know what's going on with that.
She's just not muted, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we do have to wrap it up. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm posting some links in the chat, and what if everyone could fill out our program survey, that would be great. And I want to let you know also about Colin McCullough will be back for another class on meat substitutes. That will be August 28th. It's a Saturday, same time, from 2:30 to 3:30.
And I just want to thank Philomena. I see your comments in the chat. Thank you about the tempeh, and about, you said you had the bowls at New Kitchen and they were good. Yeah, I want to go try that. Thank you. Thank you everyone for
Thank you,
coming.
everyone.
Hope to see you next month. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dot. Bye.